tonight's episode of Hey Sister. Hey, my sister, how you doing?
Hey, sister. This background is. I already have my hair slicked back, but it is really making me look like I have partial head. But anyway, I'm
Well,
making
we
it, sister. It's been a rough week. You know that.
Yes, it has been a rough week. So if you're tuned in live right now, please drop in the comments. Let us know that who's watching. We want you to like, follow, share, subscribe, share this episode with someone. Join the conversation in the comments, and certainly subscribe to our website, heysister.com. Never miss an episode. And like I said, this is Hey Sister, not Sister Sister, because inevitably we keep being called Sister. But we have one of our favorite misters with us this evening. Oh, hey sisters. Hey Jeff. So
Hey,
my husband, Jeffrey
Hey, Jody.
Sloan, is joining us this evening, watching and multitasking. We appreciate you, good brothers, for watching and multitasking. That's our friend Donald Naylor. Y'all listen. In the words of Marvin Gaye, what's going on? That's what we're going to be talking about. What's going on? It's been a lot. It's been heavy this week. Um, and so for our hometown, it's been a tough week, sister. So if you have watched some of the news, you probably have learned about the tragic transition of Kyron Lacey, a young man from our hometown who was a standout athlete at Louisiana State University. And, I'm not going to go into all the stuff that is what's reported, what's not reported, because right now there's a lot of things that we don't know. But what I do know is that if you're struggling, reach out for help. If you are feeling like the weight of the world is too heavy and is on your shoulders, or that life is closing in and things are getting dark, there is help available. And that's why along the bottom you see the 988. You can dial that number, you can go to the website to get resources, get help. Um, and like my sister said, it's been a tough week. My university family also suffered a tragic loss this week, and on Tuesday. And so this it's been really, really eye opening and troubling and disturbing and all those things. So let's lean into the light. Let's lift up the light, and let's love our children. And that's what I have to say on that. Sister, what do you have to say?
yeah, I think that there's been a lot of loss lately, and look, in general, there's always something going on, right?
Mhm.
But when things hit so close to home and you
And in
know
rapid succession, it's like,
yeah, and in rapid succession, and when you're succession, and when you're also, you know, I mean, look, I know some folks who lost their daughter as well this week, who they're waiting to hear what the cause of her death is, and so when so much is happening so quickly, it for me it feels very heavy, but it also feels like I must ask the question, God, what lesson do you want us to learn in all of this? As I posted on my personal Facebook page today, I truly believe, and our good sister Katrina Lee Jones has said, we all need Jesus and a good therapist, and I firmly believe that our spiritual health, our mental health, our physical health, all of those things are important because we are one. We are mind, body, and spirit. We are physical and spiritual and mental. We are all of these things. And so none of us know what anybody is going through on a regular basis. But with so much happening in rapid succession, like you said earlier, it starts to feel like you're not able to cope.
Mhm.
And but I feel like people should know, our children should know specifically, that they always have somebody, whether that somebody is your biological parent or not. There is always somebody. Before and we've talked about this before you make a permanent decision in a temporary situation, talk to somebody. We have so many things happening in our lives right now that, and so many forces that want us to be destroyed.
Mhm.
So many people and things that want us to be at our lowest. And I want us to know that we have to take care of each other. We have to be there for each other. Our children have to know, again, if they can't go to their parents, there is somebody that they can go to. And don't make a permanent decision in a temporary situation, because pain is pain.
Mhm.
And nobody understands the pain that a person is going through. Um, as we say spiritually, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That doesn't mean the morning is the next day,
Mhm.
and you got to work through it. And so I just am praying that
Mm.
these young people's lives are not in vain, and that something positive can come of this. And I wanted us to come on Hey Sister today because we had to honor these two young people, because it just hit so close to home this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I come to you, Jeff, when you said something, it just dropped in my, how we talk about downloads. Shout out to our friend T-Ty. We ain't saying you're the wild girl, but she talked about receiving downloads. But when you said joy comes in the morning, it comes in the morning with morning, but it also comes in the morning, mourning, because we have to mourn. And joy comes through mourning, because that mourning is a releasing process. And so while we might mourn right now, there is joy in that mourning, because we can celebrate life in that mourning. We can celebrate love and light and memories and cherished moments in the morning. So remember, joy comes in the morning as we're growing through this grieving process, as well as in a new day and new days to come. Jeff, any thoughts that you would like to share? Our Mr. perspective, because you got the
I'm
sister
just
perspective.
no, I just think that in the environment and social environment that we're in right now, we have so many more opportunities that allow what I call negativity in our lives that maybe 30 years ago wasn't there, right? Every time you're turning on a computer, or we're looking at the news, it's always the negative aspects. The phone, right? People tend to like the negative and absorb that into their lives. So it's kind of hard, I think, especially for these generations after Gen X, to be honest with you, and even some parts of Gen X, where you say that let's try to take a positive attitude, be optimistic, trying to find those things, but it's hard to find those things in the what I would call the morass of negativity that is always bombarding us, whether it be in our personal lives, our work lives, day to day scrolling through the news, scrolling through our social media. Everything that is being highlighted is the negative. And to have that in the brain and trying to rewire your brain to go to fight through that, when it's a constant, it's a constant thing in your brain. You may need 2 or 3 therapists. You might need to have a therapist meeting every morning just to get yourself going, right? And then another therapist meeting at the end of your day to say, let's clear out this stuff that has happened that you've had no choice as far as receiving into your life. And I think as a society, we're still trying to work through that. This is brand new for a lot of us, and how to deal with our kids and what they're seeing. We cannot control access to what they're seeing now. We really can't, because we've allowed the phones, we've allowed social media to be their babysitters, the ones where they receive all of this information. We have no control, really. We really don't.
Yeah.
And so I'm baffled, but it took me 55 years to talk to a therapist. So I think one good thing is that, as you said, it's available now. We just have to push our kids and our loved ones in general toward therapy, to someone be objective, in their opinion and thoughts about when we're having those discussions that may be affecting us negatively, in our lives.
And Jeff, can I just say something really quickly to that? Listen, as I'm not naive, it's not lost on me that therapy can be expensive, but the costs are so much greater if you don't take the opportunities to utilize resources and therapists around us. If we have insurance, if we have EAP at your workplace, whatever resources you have available to you, utilize them. And, we've talked a lot about the stigma over the years, the stigma in the Black community around therapy. But I think we can all agree that is not even something that, it's certainly not what it used to be. So, as hard as we push our kids to be great at sports, and as hard as we push our kids to make certain grades, as hard as we push our kids in those other aspects of their lives, let's push them that hard in ensuring that their mental health is being attended to. Because when my grandmother and my grandfather and people before me had to rely on alcohol to cope, I give them some grace because they didn't have the options. We have the options, and we need to utilize the resources we have.
Well, I dropped in again the 9888 line. I dropped in the comments there, NAMI.org. I also dropped in another organization. So if you can look, you can find resources that if they're not free, they're at a reduced cost. But the bottom line is checking in. I know that in our community, most people's they get a lot of counseling from their spiritual leaders or their church leaders. But I will say, like we said, we need Jesus and a therapist, right? Because we know Jesus he's already paid the price for us, right? So salvation is already free through him. And just reminding ourselves of that, that we have all the grace and mercy that he extends and offers to us. And that is great. And that is wonderful. And that is supportive. But we also need mental health professionals who are trained, not only in the different types of traumas or things that you might be dealing with, but also trained in the variety of modalities to help you work through it and build you up with the skills and resources. So yes, spiritual God, he is definitely a source. Praying is definitely a source, but there's a plethora of tools and methods that people are professionally trained in to help you. And it's really building up your toolbox and your tool chest. So when life does life, as Jody said, life is life. So when life does life, or when something comes at you, you like, okay, this doesn't need a hammer. Actually, I need an Allen wrench. So let me go in my toolbox because I have an Allen wrench and I can actually do something with that. That's what the importance of having trained professionals. Yeah. And if you try one and they didn't work, don't stop at that one because they got a whole bunch out here. Okay, you can find the right one for you.
Yeah.
You find the right one for you.
And I think also,
we hear
it's kind of a delay back up here. I'm up in the upper room, everyone. No, I think also, and what I found, even at my job, sometimes I have to tell employees that you have EAP. Please utilize these resources. It's there for you, these things, but you don't have to go through these things alone. And I think a lot of our friends probably don't understand that in the corporate world, these things are offered to you for free or part of your insurance. I know with ours, it's the first 12 sessions are free, and then the insurance will take over. But I think, like with the schools, I know Xavier is going through their situation. and they're providing counseling for the kids, but we're talking about over 3,000 students with I don't know how many counselors. So it's
Right.
like, maybe a message has to go out to the kids. Get with parents and see if their corporation or their business has, access to EAP, so you can utilize it also, because this is not just going to be solved in one day. This is something that you will live with. This is a trauma that you will live with for the rest of your life, especially if you knew that young person, who unfortunately transitioned over the past few days, so I'll just say that we have to kind of, blow sound the horn, sound the clarion horn that, hey, there are, like you said, Demetria, there are resources out there, and they're right in front of your face. Sometimes you just have to do a little bit of digging and just ask the question of your HR personnel to see what is offered to you.
Yeah. Yeah, and our institution, and we talked about, Southern, those kids who were with the hazing incident and that loss, they're dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Tulane just had hazing incidents and 2 fraternities who've been suspended. Like, our young people are dealing with a lots of things, and so all of our institutes, like the whole LSU community right now, they're gonna be having it. So yes, they a one school, one institution, resources can be limited, but that's why we got to tap in to the broader network, but also tap into each other and building community. Because that's
tap into our alumni networks. We have a lot of alumni who are trained professionals in these areas, and I'm certain they would be willing to do pro bono work and to ensure that our children have the time. And I'm saying our children because obviously, even if these are young adults, they're still our children.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel that as an obligation. While I don't have biological children, I still feel it's my obligation to ensure that our children have the opportunity to grow old. And like you said earlier today, sister, suicide is a very thin line between suicide and homicide. So if we want to talk about fixing our criminal system,
violence,
if we want to talk about fixing violence in our community, then it starts with healing some of these traumas that we just are not talking about. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe that anybody is just killing people because they have nothing else to do. There's other layers to it. So whether it's suicide or homicide, we have things that need to be addressed. We have traumas that need to be addressed. I know we said we're going to have a longer discussion about this on Hey Sister, because I think it's needed. But we'd be remiss if we didn't start with this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, what's going on? What's going on? That's what we're talking about tonight, and we had to start with that. I would, because my husband said, we always, typical Hey Sister, we talk a little bit about some hot topics, and he watches ESPN every day, and he watched this man every day. Stephen A. Smith, go sit down. I am so sick and tired of people being platformed who don't need to be platformed in areas. He has no choice but to consider running for president. You have all the choices in the world, sir. Go sit down. That's all I have to say. I don't know if y'all want to say anything about that.
Well,
Donald,
before we jump
to that, I can't say it on FCC.
Well, I was going to say, Jody had a comment there before we get to this. Do you think some may not truly know the definition of trauma? Yes. I think, my sister and I were having a conversation yesterday, and, we were talking about, in the spirit of Dr. Alana, who does great work. We've talked about financial trauma. We've talked about weather-related trauma. We've talked about church trauma. We've talked about, sometimes we want to, I guess, limit trauma to a few topics, a few areas, and it's like trauma extends much farther and much deeper, much wider, much further than just if you were abused as a kid or if you were abandoned as a child. There's a lot of trauma, and we all have experienced it. So I just wanted to say that.
Well,
now,
I
as far as
dropped her link in the her Instagram. I'm gonna go drop her website as well, because I know she has another one of her trauma cure sessions that's coming up at the end of May. And I will definitely say that you're right, Jody, that the not just the definition of trauma, but the long-lasting impact of trauma, right? Because we always get over stuff, right? Yeah, just get over it. Move
forgive
on.
and forget.
Forgive and forget.
Time
Time heals all wounds. No, I mean, but sometimes some wounds leave scabs. Like some wounds leave marks that even if you've had a surgery and you have cut, you still have marks of that wound, right? Of that physical wound. You're healed, but the marks are still there. The impact of those marks might reduce over time, but they reduce because you have done some healing, right? So after you have a surgery, you don't just keep going, because you actually need to heal. And if we don't heal those invisible wounds, we carry them with us all the time. So let's see.
And that's just the physical part. That's just the physical part of it.
Let's see what we got. We tried this before. We've on our second try of this. No need to keep electing folks with no experience. Yes, he might have a large vocabulary, but he also absolutely knows not of what he speaks or doing. By the way, wouldn't he be a DEI candidate? Isn't that out of style according to those folks?
Here's what I want to say about Stephen. I'm gonna call him Alfonso Smith, because I don't know. I think it's Anthony or something like that. It's his real that's what the A actually stands for. But Miss Jody, I like hers as well. It is amazing to me that someone who is a sports journalist would say, because their name is being bantered about as a potential presidential candidate, and who I don't know who's actually saying
doing the bantering,
right? He alluded to or when we were watching the clip from this week, it was alluded to that it was mentioned by Steve Bannon. Well, if it's Steve Bannon who's saying that Stephen A. Smith is the only Democrat that he would be worried about, I have so many questions about why that would be, why Steve Bannon would put his name out in the universe. And look, I think I'm a rather intelligent person. Before Donald Trump, did I think I was necessarily qualified to run for the presidency? No, but now I feel like I am, because obviously the requirements aren't that high. But just because we can doesn't mean we should. And I'm not sure why he wouldn't understand. And let me not say that he would. He knows why his name is being brought up. But brother, you can't take that stuff seriously. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to say, you called out other more qualified individuals. So when somebody is throwing your name out there, and yes, 35 and U.S. citizens, so I made it. But when somebody is throwing your name out there, somebody the likes of a Steve Bannon is throwing your name out there, you have to be intelligent enough to ask, why would he suggest that I'm the only Democrat? In a world where there is a Wes Moore, in a world where there is a John Ossoff, what's his last name? Ossoff. In a world that there is a Kamala Harris, why would you think that your name is being tossed out there? You have had more to say about Bronny James playing basketball in professional basketball than you have had to say about anything related to politics that thank you, Donald. Based on anything that has to do with like actual policy. Today you're saying that tariffs are bad, but I could have sworn the other day you were like, oh, the tariffs were good. You were happy, unless I saw an AI generated clip. I thought you were saying that the tariffs were good. So I just don't think you know what you're talking about. I'm never going to be the one who, I don't want to do the, the shut up and dribble thing, which was done to LeBron James. But it's okay if you only have an area, if your area of expertise only expands so far. While I might have a degree, I don't have a medical degree, so I'm not going to perform surgery on somebody as if I'm a surgeon. So,
but you could be the director of the Secretary of Education and say how children should be learning A1 technology instead of AI technology. Yes, Linda McMahon did that this week, Jeff. You looking perplexed?
Yes, she did. She and here's the thing. She's sitting on the stage, so let's segue to her. She done sat on this stage and nobody, not a person. Oh, well, you're right, Donald. He said RFK giving medical advice. You know what? F it. Let's all just run. Let's all run. We have no choice.
Look, I think we got a team right here. And with our cabinet that's watching right now, I think we could do this.
We have no choice. I mean, obviously, it's an indictment on the Democratic Party.
That's what Stephen A. said. He has no other choice but to consider it. We have no other choice but to consider
it. Right, because Donald keeps throwing all these unqualified people out here. So I have no choice. I must consider this now. Thank you, Donald, for letting me know.
What say you?
Jeff, I need you. I'm gonna have to find the A1 sauce because
we gonna find really comment from Linda. Yes, because they also were talking about programs like HBCUs. I was like, bitch, HBCUs are not a program. I'm done with y'all. Stop it. Oh, and she's so excited to be on the board of Howard now because as the secretary for the Department of Education, that they automatically have a position on the board of Howard University's Board of Trustees. Go on. Yes, go ahead, Netta. You run too, girl. Let's do this. Look, and we got our attorney general right here. All right, come on, let's go. We got this, y'all. We got a whole team right here. Our chief of staff, Jody, we got a whole team right here. All right, come on, Patrice. Yes, she's gonna be over. Yes, come on, Patrice gonna be over that FBI. Yes, ma'am. Let's do this. We got a whole team right here watching the show right now. All right, Jeff. I'm sorry. I just had to go there for a second.
Okay. Because the connection upstairs is pretty bad, so I'm catching things intermittently. So that's why, sometimes and you guys are like not hearing what I've got to say or whatever, but I don't know what the question was because I missed it. If you had a question for me.
We ain't no question. We just talking about why all of us are qualified. Why don't all of us run for office? Let's do it.
Well, why don't you walk down there? Why don't you walk down there next to her and we'll play this clip for the audience. Okay. And you listen so you can hear about some A1 sauce that's putting on your computers. Okay. All right. I'm gonna.
I saw that. Okay. Kick me out so I can go downstairs.
Okay.
Yes. Now let me see what this girl say. Okay. So I guess this is April Ryan. Okay. Hold on. You see this?
I see it.
All right, let me see here.
Just hit play.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure you can hear.
Or a report that I heard this morning, I wish I could remember the source, but that there is a school system that's going to start making sure that first graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades. And that's a wonderful thing. Kids are sponges. they just absorb everything. And so wasn't all that long ago that we're going to have internet in our schools. Woo. Now, okay, let's see A1 and how can that be helpful? How can it be helpful in one-on-one instruction? How can it be helpful in absorbing, more information for those fast learners? It can be more one-on-one directed. And those are the kinds of things and innovations that I want to see continue to develop. Letter or report that I heard this morning, I wish I could remember.
Now, they really should have just said, A1, ma'am. And then she said, and then my girl said,
he says it more than one time.
More than one time. And then my girl said the kids are sponges. And I just had to laugh just now. I was like, apparently they're pieces of steak, actually. What? Like, I know this woman is a multimillionaire. And maybe because I'm not a multimillionaire, I cannot be completely disconnected from society. I'm assuming that when you get to a certain threshold of income, you must like no longer be connected to society. Because how much have we been talking about AI? How much? And in the letters kind of indicate AI, artificial intelligence,
not steak sauce.
I just don't understand. And she's over the Department of Education.
Yep.
And maybe that was the plan. Maybe in the diabolical plan, it was let us find one of the stupidest people possible to put over the Department of Education and then justify why we need to get rid of the Department of Education. Like maybe that's a part of the plan. Because I thought Betsy DeVos was terrible. Oh, Miss A1 Sauce, baby. She said, hold my beer, honey.
Oh, look, somebody said first she didn't know what the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Now it's A1. Yes, ma'am. That is exactly what it is. Let's see. She knows damn well she would not want AI teaching her grandchild. A1, Louisiana. None of them sauce. None of them. But clearly, y'all, we gotta laugh to keep from crying out here. And y'all, it ain't even been 90 days. It ain't even been 90 days since that man took office. And this is what we're dealing with. We've had 2 children die of measles in the state of Texas. Like, what? Oh my goodness! Listen,
celebrity name Robert Kennedy Jr. because of his name.
Because of his name, yes. She's worse than his first one, RES. She most definitely. And then see, because we didn't even come on when we were talking about the group chat. Like we didn't even talk about there's just been so many things, and y'all listen, we gotta stay on top of it. But
so it goes back to what I was saying. We gotta save our babies. Okay. We are going to have to listen. We gotta be in community with each other. I know the words, all skin folk ain't kinfolk, but it's enough of us skin folk who can
who are kinfolk
who can join forces together. Just like we said on this call, we might be being serious, we might be clowning, but like literally everybody on this call is more qualified than the current cabinet. So that's what we have to do, because if our children, and we know public education is overwhelmingly black and brown children. It is, we are resegregating the public school system. We know this.
It is already resegregated.
It's resegregated. You're right. It's resegregated, but it's becoming more so.
And where they're moving kids, so they're taking public dollars out of schools to send children who already can afford to go to private schools to private schools. Listen, it's a hot mess. So Keisha said she signed in late. What about the SAVE Act? Honey, we ain't even got to the SAVE Act yet. We ain't even got to how I gotta go find my marriage certificate. Thank God I do have my birth certificate, and I got my passport and my driver's license, and I got the thing. But just so that you can keep your voter registration, y'all gonna have to check y'all voter registration like all the time. all the
Yeah.
time. Kiana said, we definitely used to not apply for jobs because we didn't think we were qualified. Now I encourage these young folks, apply for the job. You are qualified. Child, you overqualified. Due process is still a right for all persons in the country today. Lord help us. Yes, due process. We just have this man, the Supreme Court said, y'all need to bring this man back from this jail. Y'all picked up a man, sent him to another country with no due process.
But here's the thing, you
On
know,
a
somebody
mistake.
wrote,
And it said, oops, we made a mistake, but we can't do nothing about fixing our mistake. What?
because somebody said today, and I
And
hate
you want to talk
I-
about
I-
trauma? Well, think about that, they children. The trauma for those children and that wife. God.
like I said, somebody wrote on social media, I didn't think about it, but now I have no choice. They're like, they can't bring him back because that man is probably dead.
Well, Jody said here they don't know where he is. I believe that. Just like the first time we had this man in office and all those children got lost. Woo, child, listen, it's a hot mess. Now, listen, I'm gonna tell y'all what. If you haven't seen how China has been trolling us on social media, I'm not on TikTok. I use the app Threads from time to time, but let me tell you, baby, China has been going in on us, and that's partly why we brought Jeff on tonight to talk about trade and tariffs and all of this stuff, because this is part of what he does professionally and kind of give up. But girl, have you seen how China has been trolling us?
I've seen some of it. I mean, I don't listen.
China said,
Right
here's
now,
the code. We
I mean, listen.
we've been
Right
in country
now.
for 5,000
Man,
years.
dog it, I'm trying to talk. Can you not hear me? Golly.
They trolling. I do hear you, but I'm just saying China has been clowning me. Okay.
All I'm saying is, if somebody owes me as much money as we owe China, they got the right to troll us. We can't do nothing about it. We broke without them. And what I don't know how the American people don't understand that. China owns us. Now, unless you telling me something that maybe I've been lied to all this time, but it's my understanding they own the debt that this country has created. So every time we talk about the trillions of dollars in debt that America is in, China owns it.
They buy the bonds,
right?
That we use to
so
finance.
I mean, so they can troll us.
It says, according to a quick search, it says China owns approximately 9.1% of the U.S. national debt. Yes, so China held 774 billion in U.S. Treasury certificates,
and that's only 9%. Well, but they still probably have the largest share. I'm assuming.
I believe so. Let's see. China said they don't give a damn. We was here not 500, baby, 5,000 years before the United States, and we'll be here after.
Most U.S. people don't know that. I'm afraid that they don't, because they never.
Yeah, I don't think they understood what the whole 1776 thing was about.
Right.
Like, I know it seems like it was a long time ago because it's 2025, but like, you know, these other places, if you ever leave the United States and go like overseas, they got stuff that happened before Christ.
Yeah.
Well, you know, 2020. That's what I said. We in 2025 on the calendar year that we do right now. But you know, like, I mean, did y'all not study like about Genghis Khan and all them people, like all the dynasties, and like, did anybody take a world history?
The answer
I
is
don't know if they did. They really didn't.
I don't
the
know.
answer is no.
And there were people here. They were indigenous people who were living their best life without you. They had their tribal system. They had their methodology. They were fine too before you decided to come over here and say you want to take their land and claim it as your own. Listen, let's get into this conversation. Let's see, left off a zero and the property they own over here
That
as
part,
well.
all on the coast, the East Coast and the West Coast. So, and plus, this goes back to 2000s, and when instead of raising taxes to pay for the Gulf Wars, we borrowed the money from China and other countries to conduct that war, which was something unheard of in the earlier years, right? World War II was not financed by another foreign country. In order to get that agenda to go forward, they quietly borrowed money from the Chinese government to finance those particular wars. So thank you, George W. Bush.
Well, there it is. Well, Mr. Sloan, one of the main reasons we wanted you on here, and you wrote notes, so I appreciate
I got notes.
He got his notes. He's ready.
We speak in acronyms, so I don't want to speak.
Yes, he speaks in lots of acronyms, honey. So if you don't know, my husband works in global trade compliance. You've been doing this now for about how long?
Ooh, about 28 years.
Yeah, so for about 28 years. So you are live with Hey Sister. Make sure y'all like, follow, share, subscribe. If you want to learn about tariffs and trade, now is the time to come into the conversation. So Jeffrey is going to break some things down for us, and so we can have a better understanding of what really is going on. What's going on and what it really means, what it means for all of us and our day-to-day lives, and the I don't know, the yo-yo, because it's like, oh, we doing this, we not doing it. We doing it, we not doing it. We doing it, we not doing it. And every day is something different, and what that does for us. So can you just kind of give us some of the basics?
So first of all, the yo-yo effect is Donald Trump. Other presidents have used tariffs to maybe protect the economy of the United States, or certain sectors of the economy of the United States. And some of the presidents have been given power with one act called IEPA, International Emergency Economies Powers Act. So for national emergencies and, for national security, foreign policy, or the economy, Congress has granted the president that act, the IEPA Act, in order to use tariffs to maybe protect the economy of the United States. So if you look at the executive orders that Donald Trump has signed, they're talking about the fentanyl is a national emergency. So he defined this as a national emergency so he could do what? Implement these particular tariffs. So for everybody out there, tariffs are nothing but really sales tax on products that we import into the United States, right? So every country uses tariffs in order to raise, some type of funds and things of that nature, but also to protect their domestic economy too. For, countries sending cheap product over that could disable our economy, those other the manufacturers in the United States making that same product. So it's kind of like a protection piece of it. Even Joe Biden used it with the CHIPS Act, right, to bring semiconductor stuff back. So he didn't stop all the tariffs that Donald Trump implemented the first time, but he took a particular sector or section like the semiconductor piece and kept those tariffs in place, right? And some of the aluminum and steel tariffs also for Chinese goods and raw materials, right? Because it was trying to protect and bring a manufacturing sector back into the United States that could have a serious effect on our national security. Because if China is making all of our circuits, making all of our motherboards for our computers and things of that nature, well, guess what? They also have the opportunity to put bugs and malware into those particular circuits, those integrated circuits and things of that nature. So with the CHIPS Act, that is a use of tariffs that was really surgical in nature, and it actually worked. It did bring back some of those industries back into the United States and some of that manufacturing. Now, what Donald Trump has done over the past 68, 70 days, it really has no, what I would call rhyme or reason, because it was all over the place. First, he started off with tariffs on our largest trading partners, right? China, Mexico, and Canada. Now, we just signed he changed NAFTA to the USMCA free trade agreement. All he did was tweak about 4 or 5 things to change the name. He fought for this. I'm changing this, but it was essentially the same free trade agreement. But he comes into office now and basically says, you know what? Because of the fentanyl piece, I am going to punish you because you're not agreeing with what I want you to do. And IEEPA allowed him to do that, right? Because he could just say anything to say that this is a national emergency. And so now with Mexico, Canada, 25% on goods that are coming from those particular countries, unless they qualify for the USMCA free trade agreement. The problem is that it's hard to certify some of your product lines that are coming through under that. So a lot of companies are suffering, especially if they're having their manufacturing coming from China or coming from Mexico or Canada. And we're seeing it in the energy sector, right? Now, on top of that, he came back a month later and added the reciprocal tariffs, which essentially what we thought when he said it the first time, that it was like if a car received a 5% tariff in the, say, the EU, and it was only a 2% tariff for EU cars coming into the United States, we thought he was going to, okay, balance it out, 5%, 5%. All right, that's something maybe you can work with. But what he did was, first,
he used A1 to come up with a formula.
it came up with a formula using trade deficits. Well, first of all, Vietnam will always have a trade deficit with the United States because they can't afford a lot of the things that we make over here. So that formula has, Vietnam paying a 37% reciprocal tariff until recently, until last week when he changed it back down to 10% versus the United States. It was impossible. It's impossible for a person with sane reasoning to use a trade deficit when we buy more things from everybody else in the world than they can afford to buy from us, right? So the issue is that he's hurting the economy because you have his minions thinking that China or those particular countries are paying for the tariffs. They're stupid enough to believe that when a US company pays this tariff on those products coming in, that they're not going to pass that down to the consumer. So as I joked with my wife the other day, I probably should have bought that 85-inch television for $575 2 weeks ago, because now it might be $2,000, especially if it was made in China. And what they don't realize, that all the tariffs that he has brought forth with China, they're stackable. So the tariffs that he had put in place for, in his first term, they were still there. And some of them had exemptions that are about to leave now, right? And they were at 25%. Then he added the 20%. 20 plus 25 is 45%. Then he did the reciprocal piece, right? Then it went to 84%. And now the baseline now with those reciprocal tariffs from China is 125%. But people aren't counting the 20% from the first time. So that's why it's at 145%. So you are going to be paying double the price for certain things coming out of China.
Well, let me tell you something.
And I deal with this every day. It gets
That's what I was about to say. Listen, I'm a cuss. This shit is confusing, okay?
How you think I feel?
But here's what I know for sure. This is what I know for sure. Wait, hold on. What is girl? Stuff is turning on. Hold on. If y'all hear some holiday music playing, I apologize. This thing is just jumped to. What the hell? The music then came on, y'all. I'm so sorry.
Okay, well, we can't hear the music. We hear you, though.
Yes, but Santa Claus is coming to town and started blasting. Listen, this is confusing. And this is why, for me, it is just very simple. If he suggested it, it's probably not good for me. I don't understand why we can't just baseline right there. I have not seen, because we've already been through one administration with the fellow. I have never seen where any of his policies, now granted, I'm sure the first time when he was doing all those tax cuts and stuff, they probably helped me out a little bit, right? Because of where I was. I know, but where I was at the time might have helped me a little bit, right? But other than that, I'm like, how is it that people don't understand that if somebody who has traditionally not had anything in common with you, why would you think anything they implement is supposed to be for your benefit? I want to understand. And so when we talk about all this tariff stuff and the trade stuff, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I'll admit it. But what I do know is our markets have been fluctuating and they have been tanking. And the only people who benefit from a market that tanks are people who have so much money that they can purchase or they can bet against the market, i.e. short the market. They bet that it's gonna tank and they get paid because it tanked.
Yeah, the Big Short. That's what happened with the housing market in 2008, 2009.
So yes, it is chaos. He has created chaos his first 100 days, and everyone is paying for it except those top, I'll say the top 1 or 2%, or the people who really know how to play the stock market, because they know every time he says something with the tariffs, it is going to be an immediate drop, right? And then you'll come back, pull back. And after if somebody has spent $10 million on a cheaper stock and it goes back up 10 or 15%, their profit is made.
And they can take their money out and do something else.
Anytime.
And you gotta be so cold at that. Because let's be honest, I don't sit and watch like that. But the people who do sit and watch like that and who know the game much better than most of us, they pay
people to do that for them. Right.
Correct. And so, and if they're already financially in the 1%, because this is also what I can't understand. I personally don't like Elon Musk. I don't know the fella, but what I know about him, I don't like it. But even if I wasn't tripping off of him like that, what I do know is, let's see, I would have to do a search. I think the last I heard was in the first, 50, 60 days of the administration, he made like $177 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but if you're cutting government programs across the board, and as somebody so intelligently pointed out, you're cutting the organizations that are there to regulate your businesses, that seems like it would be a conflict of interest. When you know that the president is about to say some ridiculous stuff and the market is going to tank, and you're one of those
that here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and you know it's time to buy, that is insider trading. And Martha Stewart, if y'all didn't watch her documentary, Martha Stewart went to jail for less.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I'm not the smartest. I don't know a whole lot about a whole lot. But I know that none of this is in the best interest of people that look like me. So I just don't understand the folks who still caping for this fella. And like you say, if you buy a shirt, if I bought a shirt yesterday or bought a TV yesterday and it costs $500, and then Boo Boo the Fool is over here playing with these tariffs and it goes up, down, baby shake that ass around. Y'all know the reference.
Come on through, Gerard.
Then you ultimately, you can't tell me there's any way that this is not going to get passed on to the consumer. Mm-hmm. I don't understand who doesn't understand that in the long run, the people who are going to be people who are going to be holding the bag are people who know that it's artificial intelligence and not A1.
Chris, I'm going to tell you what I tell a lot of people that I work with, who are smart, intelligent, very capable. There you go, thinking logically again, because you have people, his minions, as I call them, who actually believe that Mexico was going to pay for the wall, who actually believe that, China and all these countries are going to pay these tariffs that will shrink our debt. And they should know better, but we know they don't know better because they kind of gutted the educational system. So it looks like this long-term plan. The Heritage Foundation wrote Project 2025 a long time ago. They just called it something else. But it has been put in place, I think, for at least the last 25 to 30 years. It started with the educational piece. No Child Left Behind, I think, was just a terrible way of doing things, trying to measure success by testing and things of that nature. That did not teach kids how to think logically. And now what do we have here? Even so-called intelligent kids who test well, who do not think logically and follow this man. They destroyed the educational system first and foremost. which allows these things to happen. Because look at a lot of your Congress people there. There is no way in the world some of those folks should have been elected for anything.
Mm-hmm. They shouldn't have. But what they did know how to do was to hire somebody to watch their money and to jump in and jump out.
Mm-hmm.
Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm looking at
it's
you.
called insider trading within the highest levels of government. Mm-hmm. They see what is coming through. They see the legislation. They know the lobbyists coming to them, telling them what their company is trying to do. We need your support. So you think they're going to forget about that information when they talk to their financial advisors buying stocks in certain companies? No. The chaos has started with tariffs, so you will overlook what Elon Musk is doing. That is my opinion. That's what I'm speculating. The things that they are doing, releasing information from a lot of these government agencies about our personal information. Let's just kind of create chaos with the tariffs and the stock market, because then they're not going to talk about it as much.
Yeah. That they've taken all of our personal information, our social security information. Yeah. And,
you know, when people say, well, the tariffs, well, that'll bring manufacturing back. No, it's going to bring a manufacturing facility of, you know, of a complexity of dealing with automobile industry and other things in the medical industry too. That takes 2 to 3 years to get it up and running. And you still got to worry about getting your raw materials from other places, right? It's not just about the product itself. It's the piece parts that go in the product too, that you have to worry about, you know, and we're not part of a lot of free trade agreements. The United States really isn't. You know, we have USMCA, which is formerly NAFTA, and maybe Singapore and Korea. But for the most part, no. With the other countries, no. What's going to happen in my estimation is that Europe is going to start working with China more. Right? Because now he's put tariffs on European countries. And there are other tariffs that are about to happen, what we call the sectoral tariffs, which are dealing with specific industries, very similar to aluminum and steel in the automobile industry. Next up is pharmaceutical. So your drugs and things of that nature may cost even more, because this last round of tariffs, the reciprocal tariffs, the pharmaceutical industry was basically exempt from these last ones. And the reason being is because they're about to implement that. So your drugs will probably cost more. Your medicines will probably cost more. So,
so first of all, I thank you for clarifying how he was able to do that by calling this a national emergency and being able to like use a loophole in the existing laws in order to do that. So I appreciate you explaining that. And so, you know, we have it on everything, but then we pull back on phones and computers, but then now we throw it back in. So yes, tariffs on the penguins even. Yes, on the penguins. Let's see what else. We got another comment here. We don't have the infrastructure, money, and people to bring all this stuff here. Such idiotic thinking. Absolutely. Global trade is necessary. No country can sustain in isolation. We need each other for our economies to thrive. Absolutely. Is destroying the American trade bloc. We are trying to create the last 30 plus years. Yes, we were trying to create the last 30 plus years with Mexico and Canada. Absolutely.
And the retaliatory tariffs are now coming. Of course, China has put 125% on U.S. goods, right? Canada has put tariffs on energy and lumber and other things in dairy products or agricultural products. So our farmers who sell to Canada, who sell to China, they are going to get hit. You have a lot of farmers who voted for him, all those Midwestern states, who are now feeling the brunt of this, because now they can't sell their products to those particular countries.
I just heard that China said they're not going to the beef. They're not going to import. They're going to go to Australia and not import beef from here anymore.
So they're going to work with other countries. Right now, the U.S. dollar is the currency of choice worldwide. Right? You know, that is it. And what China is doing, because China is not part of that piece. Like if you go to China, you take your $100 over there and trade it in for the yuan to spend in China. Well, guess what? You better spend it all, because you can't bring that yuan back to the United States and trade it back in for dollars, because China does not do that. So they have their own separate currency that's outside of this monetary fund. that the rest of the world uses. They don't trade their dollars for yuan and yuan for dollars.
Now you have some more notes here. I want to make sure you get in the stuff
I
that
got
you
the
need to
notes.
get
I
in.
got the
Yeah.
notes. Well, the IEPA Act was one, but the first tariffs that he used in his first term were the Section 301 tariffs, which allows U.S. trade representatives to investigate and take action against foreign trade practices deemed unfair, discriminatory, and unreasonable. So that's what he used as the executive branch to actually institute these tariffs. Generally you would want Congress to have a say in these things, but we've granted the executive office that power using that particular act. Section 232 with the Trade Expansion Act, it authorizes the Secretary of Commerce to investigate the effects of imports of any article for national security. That is the aluminum and steel piece, because what do we need aluminum and steel for? To build bombs, tanks, cars.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Yes, weapons of mass destruction, right? And trying to make sure that the industry is strong here, because we don't want to rely on another country outside of the United States to provide us these things just in case a war happens and they can cut off our supply. So it's all tied with foreign policy and national security, but they use these particular acts and the power given to them and granted to them by Congress to use those acts to institute these tariffs as such and do anything he wants with it.
Okay, Jeff, again.
It's politics, and I want Stephen A. Smith to even deal with this piece. Obama was
No,
great.
I don't think that Donald Trump is dealing with it.
No, he doesn't.
I think this dude, like when he talk about, like you just talked about, what is it?
He made up a formula.
I don't even
Well,
think
he
they
didn't
went
make
to
that up.
A1 and tanked it.
The Penguins, baby, the Penguins are getting 37% for stuff that they sent to the United States. The Penguins.
So this is what I want to ask, because
Trump is going to try to quietly subsidize farmers to give them some cushion, like he did his first term, which he did do the first term. But we trying to limit government spending. Congress is totally dysfunctional. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. But again, if people don't understand, so this is where I was going. If people don't understand this intimately, and it's just a bunch of sound bites running through the air, right? What is the key takeaway from all of this stuff? What is the key takeaway if you just had to sum it up?
Check your history, because it's happened. This is the third time that this has happened. It happened under President McKinley. They went into a free fall when it came to the economy. It happened under Herbert Hoover, both Republicans, with the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. Same thing. We're going to put tariffs on everybody. And what happened? The Great Depression. So protect your mentals and protect your money.
Oh, that's a bar.
Okay.
Right.
I got that's Marshawn Lynch. Protect your mentals.
Yeah.
And protect your money.
Okay.
When you see him do some things, you might want to jump in and do some things too if you have the liquid cash laying around.
And that's what Arnetta was mentioning up here. She said she started day trading. I need to learn some more. So yes, whether you're doing trading or you doing options, you gotta
because options about winning and losing. You can bet against them. You can bet against the stock.
That's how the short goes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's so interesting. I don't know that people who don't have an intimate understanding. And listen, if we keep talking about education, and we know even when we think we've had a decent education, things like how to play the stock market, that's not I shouldn't say how to invest in the stock market. Those sort of things aren't taught in school. And so, and I will say this, like when I was in graduate school, one of the biggest challenges that I had was in economics class. And it was because I'm like, we don't sit around and talk about how trade and tariffs will impact the world economy, things that are done in China and Japan, how that impacts the U.S. economy. We don't talk about, when the yen is up, what does that do to the dollar? We don't sit around and have those conversations. When we were younger, we got newspapers, and in the newspaper there was the stock. You saw the tickers. You saw what was going up and what was going down. You saw the various markets. The markets are not just in the United States, but We don't have we have access to it, but we don't see that anymore. And these kind of conversations are not being had at our dining room tables.
No.
In fact, I don't think a lot of conversations are being had at dining room tables. And when we do get around the dining room table, sadly, we're on our phone, but we're not talking about how these things are going to impact the everyday person. And we got somebody who does something, like you said, who does some dumb shit to keep us distracted. Looking at that, it's like, ooh, look at that, while something is happening over here.
Mhm.
And this is why we're constantly feeling like we can't keep up.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just, all the people who was worried about eggs and gas.
Didn't even understand why the eggs were going up, why the prices were up, why chicken wings were up over the past 3 or 4 years. They had to kill billions of chickens and hens. That's why.
Because of that bird flu.
Supply and demand. But they didn't report on that. They let it, oh, this is part of inflation. No. If you ain't got the hens to lay the eggs, supply and demand. It's pretty simple.
Well, I like protect your mentals and protect your money. And
You giving up nonsense to the conversation. You
I
done.
quit because
you can't quit. You can't quit.
no, I can't. No, let me say this. And I've been thinking about posting this for the last few days. So I haven't posted it, so I'm gonna throw it out here. Y'all tell me what y'all thoughts are. You know, there's this song, and we've been talking about how Black people, yes, in the midst of all this trauma and drama, we've been line dancing, right? But I got a theory that this Boots on the Ground song is a little bit deeper than maybe we're taking it. Because I feel like we really should be having our boots on the ground. Like, if we sit around playing and acting like we don't see what's really happening, like our boots need to be on the ground, because when America catches a cold, we catch pneumonia.
Mhm.
Our boots got to be on the ground because we have, you know, again, this attack on public education is a direct attack on us.
Yeah.
We got to have our boots on the ground, because when you have someone making millions of dollars and turning around and saying, but your kids can't have a free lunch at a school, making millions of dollars on satellites,
Making millions of dollars a day.
Yes,
Mhm.
and has access to all of our information, and all we're doing is sitting online. We're arguing with each other, and it's like, no, our boots need to be on the ground. We need to be going. We need to be writing our Congress folks. We need to be calling them. We need to be demanding that they stop playing in our face. We really do need to get our boots on the ground, because as fun as it is to say we're disconnected, we don't have time to be disconnected.
Mm-mm.
Well, it depends where you're disconnected from. Are you going to try to disconnect from the people that have not been good for us as a culture? When I say boots on the ground, I say we come together. We have to make our plans, but we don't have to share with everyone.
Amen. Now we
Okay.
definitely.
Because when we share with everyone, then we'll allow people to come in and cause division amongst ourselves, right? Or their ideal of what we should do gets in the way.
I.e., we should all want Stephen A. Smith to run for president.
Right. Or as someone said, this protest that protest on April 5th or whatever it was, you know, so peaceful because Black folks weren't there. Because if Black folks would have been there, then it probably would have had all the National Guards out and things of that nature. Right?
It was so peaceful because it was meaningless. We saw the people.
That part.
I saw the folks. You didn't tell. What was the plan of action after you got out? After you went outside and held up your signs, what was the plan?
They look to us to make the plan, and if it doesn't go right, they blame it on us. So, as I said, boots on the ground, but our boots on the ground, and you don't have to bring everybody else into your planning.
And not all of us do.
You know, all of it, not all of
But
us.
Stephen A. Smith, go sit down and stay right where you at. And yes, Donald, he had just renegotiated his contract. He got a whole bunch of money. So
20 million a year.
So you stay over there. You stay over there.
Yes.
Yes.
Go sit down.
So I take it as sometimes our planning, we don't have to put it out for the whole world to
Amen.
see.
Yes, boo. Never.
Yes. And as Gil Scott Heron said, the revolution was not meant to be televised because the revolution is the revolution of the mind, changing your thought process on how you do things. No, that won't be televised. And that was so interesting that I heard him say that about 2 or 3 months ago, because you always just think it was about something else. You know, it's just going to happen. And no, he's talking about the revolution in your mind to change your thought process on how you do things and how you handle things.
Look, and to think we shall overcome and to be upset that we weren't there.
The audacity. Exactly. Where are you?
To sing we shall overcome, but you had bounce houses or you was looking for bounce houses to be there? That don't even go together.
They ain't looking about they ain't talking about no sacrifice. They're like, well, I need to be comfortable. We are the ones that always sacrifice. It's on our backs, our broken bones and blood
and
intellect that people have gotten, other groups have gotten what we fought for. John O'Brien said DEI, DEI ain't never been for us. We like the number 6 recipient of DEI measures. Number 6.
True. DEI has not been for us. However, diversity, equity, and inclusion as actual principles should be for everybody, because
you got to believe in humanity for that.
That's exactly, because you got to believe in humanity. And at the end of the day, as I've always said, if left to their own devices, we know what they're capable and willing to do. So unfortunately, we got to put stuff in place to say, because y'all don't act right, we got to make you act right.
Yeah.
And now that they have a reason to try to DEI us, or say it's basically equate DEI with being Black and being incompetent, so therefore they don't need to hire us. Well, you know what? Go right ahead. Your shit is going to crash.
And that's what's happening, because you're going to give away all the damn military secrets because you brought in a second-rate major Fox personality. I
don't even know that he was second-rate. I might have taken second-rate. I don't know what. I don't think he had a rating. His Yelp rating is 0.
Right. He is a true definition of
my goodness.
What I would call a hiring that, it was all about a friendly gesture. You've been good to me. Here you go, Pete. I'm going to let you have this one because I don't think it's that important.
Well, Lurie Daniel Favor said the other day, WEI, white, entitled, and incompetent.
All right. Yeah. They don't know pain, suffering, and sacrifice. They're the causes of it, honey. You better say that. Listen, my sister dropped a word there about that boots on the ground. So I'm going to tell y'all, we need to get our boots on the ground. We need to be organizing. We need to plan. We need to be in community with each other. We need to rest. We need to resist and all of that stuff. I had dropped in here to Give Love Xavier. Yes, because we going to wrap up our Give Love Xavier Day tomorrow. Pour back into our institution, our educational institutions, because if we want our HBCUs to survive, so you better pour back into them. So Xavier,
find one. They got over 100. If you don't find one to give back to,
maybe look, give $1 to each one. It's fine with us.
And I'm going to take it a step further.
Yes.
You know how we go back for homecoming and we give blessings to these kids. Sometimes it's okay to give the kids your phone number. Sometimes it's okay to sit there and talk to those kids and say, hey, I know you're about to go into your senior year. Let me talk to you. Let me look at your resume. Let me prep you. Pick 1, 2, 3, 4 of these young kids and help them survive the corporate world if they're going into the corporate world. If they're going into medical school, you're a doctor, please give them some insight on how to survive that piece of it. Give them the knowledge that they deserve to get. It's not just about the money. Give your time also. That's one thing I think we don't help our kids well enough in the transition from college and school into the real workforce or into the grad school piece. it's okay to give money, but give your time. Get them prepared.
Like I said, build up the toolbox.
Yeah.
We all have to have a toolbox. So with that, let's see, we got a couple more comments here. Let's see what we got. Yes, each one teach one for sure. We got, and in Florida, let's not even talk about this mini tyrant over here who's trying to shape us in the image of the MAGA tyrant. They're giving police even more permission to do whatever they want. Can you imagine us out there protesting? Honey, listen, these ICE agents going into these schools, traumatizing our children. Yes, pour into the African American Museum in DC. Absolutely. Yes. Because here's the thing, if it's
all of them, Whitney Plantation as well is under attack in Louisiana. Every single institution where Blackness is being celebrated or talked about from an honest perspective, everyone pour into them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes. So that's where you talk about protecting our mentals and protect our money. How we choose to invest the dollars and resources that we have are going to mean the difference whether these institutions will survive this barrage or not. So we can do that. Let's protect our institutions. Let's protect our own. And with that, good night.
Good night, y'all.